Let's talk to Kevin Barnett, though, partner in employment and HR at Leicester Aldridge, because believe it or not, as I mentioned earlier, there's a new sexual harassment law which has come into place basically today. And what it means is that if you're running a business, not only are you duty-bound to try and make sure that you deal with sexual harassment in the proper way, but now you might have to stop it before it happens, I think. Kevin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks very much for joining us. Is that correct? As an employer, do you now have sort of more responsibility to make sure that sexual harassment just doesn't happen in your workplace?
Yes, actually, this comes into force on Saturday, the 26th of October, and you now have what they describe as a positive duty to take preventative steps,
right.
Which basically means that you should be stopping it before it starts.
Yes. And how do you do that exactly?
Well, there's a number of ways you can go about it. The Equality and Human Rights Commission has published guidance in respect of this in terms of how an employer will comply. And there are a number of steps to take, many that you would sort of expect from a sort of health and safety perspective, which is how this sort of incident is viewed. So we have things like undertaking risk assessments of where problems are likely to lie with sexual harassment. That's got to be very specific to the business you work in, because certain sectors have greater incidence of sexual harassment than others. So in particular, things like retail, healthcare, hospitality, they tend to have larger figures of complaints of sexual harassment. And things like training, making sure that your staff are aware what amounts to sexual harassment. We deal with an awful lot of claims and cases in this regard, and it's quite amazing just what people seem to think is acceptable.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, is there a legal definition of sexual harassment, or is it down to each individual person? Like, I might feel sexually harassed by somebody when somebody else might not.
Well, sexual harassment itself is very specific, so it's unwanted conduct of a sexual nature.
Right.
So that can be...
That doesn't sound that specific to me, I'm afraid.
Well, it's very difficult to say what it is, but in reality, it has to have that...
Like if I complimented somebody and said, you're wearing a nice dress today, that could be I mean, I wouldn't say that now, by the way, because I'd be too frightened it'd be considered to be sexual harassment, but I don't know if it is.
Well, it's unlikely to be just in, you know, that's a nice dress you're wearing, but it's what you're doing with that. Obviously, if you're leering at the person as you're doing it, that might be sexual harassment.
I've never leered in my life.
Just on the side won't be.
Yeah. Well, what if it's a bloke in a dress?
Well, yeah, interesting point.
I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. It's very confusing, and I know that you're a lawyer, so you deal in absolutes. But I just imagine that it's quite a woolly area, if you know what I mean.
To some extent, some of it is, but I think actually it's the application of common sense.
Right.
Most of us know, you know, what the limits are on what you should and should not be saying to somebody. And I think quite often it's used as an excuse, well, I didn't understand that will be taken as a sexual comment.
Right. I mean, like, for example, a lot of people in our business, the media business, you know, there's a lot of what might be described as social activity that goes on. People might go to the pub together after work, you know, or they might be at an event perhaps together, or sometimes, you know, you might be going to a Labour Party conference or something like that, so you're kind of working outside of the office environment. If you ask somebody out, for example, and they don't want to go, is that sexual harassment?
Potentially, yes, because it's unwanted conduct.
Right.
You know,
so won't this be a bit of an impediment to people going? Because most people still meet their future partners at work, don't they?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure on the statistics on that. But what we do know statistic-wise is that, you know, approximately 40% of women and about 18% of men say that they have been sexually harassed at work in one way or another.
Right.
But it's all degrees. And as I say, I think actually a lot of this is common sense. The law hasn't changed as such. We've always had protection against sexual harassment. What this does is basically take it one step slightly further to make sure that employers have in place sort of the policies, procedures, reporting type things to make sure that they are stamping this out at the beginning.
So if somebody's listening to this who runs a small business, say, I mean, we were learning just yesterday that most businesses in this country have between 1 and 7 employees, right? What should they be doing that they up to now haven't been doing?
Well, in reality, if you are a small business, and again, all of this is tested objectively. So if you don't have a great deal of resource, they're not expecting you to sort of introduce 20 new policies and, you know, go on thousands of pounds worth of training.
Right.
It is all subject to that objectivity. So if you have a business of, say, 7 people, then making sure that you have some sort of policy is a good idea. Making sure that people understand what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in the workplace is a good idea. And also just making sure that people feel comfortable in reporting it.
But in telling people how to behave, is there not a risk there as well that you're kind of imposing your overbearing kind of values and morals on people who might not need them to be told that somehow?
Well, you know, I suppose you could view it that way, but you know, we
you know, I mean, if I got called into,
people are women,
right? I mean, if I got called into my boss's offices and would just don't leer at women, I'd go, well, I don't. You know, why are you telling me that? Why, you know, why are you singling me out?
But because your boss has told you that, then they may well have a defence if a claim is brought in respect of sexual harassment. It's about your employer taking those steps to try and prevent it so that they can show that they have systems in place to prevent and that people are aware of what is acceptable conduct.
Right. So we expect to see a lot more signs up in the office, right? Which we know everywhere we go there are signs. You know, don't stand here, walk left, don't go. You know, what are we going to? We put them on the underground now. You know, don't stare at people. It says.
Yeah, well, the reality is going to be we've all seen the signs in shops. You know, we won't tolerate abuse of our staff by customers.
Right.
Well, actually, those sort of signage, you know, it might be appropriate to say we won't tolerate abuse or any sort of sexual harassment.
Right.
And that's the sort of practical steps we're talking about.
It's a terrible place that we've found ourselves in, isn't it? I mean, you know, you should be able to go to work and surely get on with each other without having to have signs that tell you how to behave.
Well, one would hope so. Unfortunately, experience teaches us that, unfortunately, a lot of people within the workplace just don't seem to have that common sense switch about what is acceptable and what is not.
Yeah, but again, it feels like a sort of sledgehammer to crack a nut. You know, I've always thought if somebody's an idiot, tell them he's an idiot. And take them to one side and go, you're an idiot. But don't tell everybody that you might be an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I absolutely appreciate it. As I say, I think the difficulty just is that the figures support that there are an awful lot of idiots out there.
There are. But then presumably also there might be people who make reports about sexual harassment which actually wasn't sexual harassment as well. I don't know.
Yeah, that is always a risk. You know, you might have that sort of malevolent reporting where somebody is simply going to get one over. But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily ever going to be successful. We've seen plenty of cases where people have made reports, there is no evidence to support them, and it goes no further.
Right.
But as I say, unfortunately, the statistics show that there is an awful lot goes on, and personal experience as an employment lawyer.
Listen, I bow to your greater knowledge, no question, but I was just a bit sad, really. Anyway, listen, Kevin, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Got to run. Kevin Barnett, partner in employment and HR at Leicester Aldridge Lawyers Company. It's awful, isn't it? So you can't, don't ask anybody out, don't buy anybody a drink, don't smile at anyone, don't compliment anyone, just keep to yourself. Is it any wonder people don't want to go to work and they want to work from home? It's not surprising, is it? Can you be sexually harassed virtually? I don't know.